Look, I need to be real with you about what WWE is doing to Paul Heyman, because this has been building for years, and it's getting absolutely ridiculous at this point. This man is arguably the greatest manager and talker in professional wrestling history, someone who elevated ECW from a bingo hall operation into a cultural phenomenon, someone who made Brock Lesnar feel like an actual legitimate monster, someone who added gravitas and depth to Roman Reigns during his best character work. And what are they doing with him now? They're turning him into a revolving door of betrayals, a plot device that gets dusted off whenever creative needs cheap heat or an easy emotional beat. It's lazy, it's predictable, and it's genuinely damaging to a character that should be protected at all costs. The problem started becoming apparent during the Roman Reigns storyline when they began treating Heyman like a ping-pong ball between allegiances. Sure, the initial dynamic of Heyman serving as the special counsel to the tribal chief was gold. It gave Roman a mouthpiece who could articulate what the champion couldn't or wouldn't say, and it gave Heyman a role that felt fresh because he wasn't just managing a monster like Brock, he was serving a calculating, manipulative champion who demanded respect and loyalty. That worked beautifully until WWE decided they needed to complicate things with CM Punk's return and the whole Bloodline implosion saga. Suddenly Heyman is caught between Roman and Punk, his loyalty is questioned, he's getting physically abused by the Bloodline, and the entire narrative becomes about whether Paul Heyman is going to betray someone or get betrayed himself. Then they brought Solo Sikoa into the mix and had him essentially usurp Roman's position, which meant Heyman had to navigate that political minefield, and of course that led to more drama, more accusations of betrayal, more of Heyman being put in impossible positions where no matter what choice he makes, someone's gonna turn on him or he's gonna have to turn on someone. It's exhausting to watch because you can see the pattern forming. WWE Creative looks at Paul Heyman and they don't see a three-dimensional character anymore. They see a shortcut to drama. They see someone whose mere presence can add weight to a storyline. So they keep throwing him into these betrayal angles because they know fans care about him and they know his reactions will sell the emotion. But here's what they're missing. Every single time you run this play, you diminish the impact of the last one. When Heyman and Brock had their falling out way back, that felt monumental because those two were bonded for over a decade. When Brock destroyed Heyman, or when their relationship fractured, it meant something because of the history and investment. Fast forward to now, and how many times has Heyman been betrayed or accused of betrayal in just the past few years? With Roman, with Punk, with the entire Bloodline structure, and now apparently with Seth Rollins getting thrown into the mix. At what point does this stop being compelling television and start becoming white noise? At what point do fans stop caring because they've seen this exact angle play out so many times that it's lost all meaning? The Seth Rollins situation is particularly galling because it feels like creative just reached into their bag of tricks and pulled out the Heyman betrayal card again without considering whether it actually serves the story or the characters involved. Seth doesn't need Paul Heyman. Seth has proven time and time again that he can carry himself on the microphone, that he can generate heat or sympathy depending on what the story calls for, and that he doesn't require a mouthpiece to get his character across. So why involve Heyman at all unless it's just to run the same tired playbook where Heyman aligns with someone, tension builds, and eventually there's a betrayal that's supposed to shock us but instead just makes us roll our eyes because we've literally seen this multiple times in the span of a few years. What's even more frustrating is that WWE has this incredible performer in Paul Heyman who can do so much more than just be the guy who gets betrayed. He's a creative genius who understands wrestling psychology better than probably anyone else in that company. He knows how to build stars, how to craft compelling long-term narratives, how to make moments feel important. Instead of utilizing that brain and those skills in ways that could actually elevate the product, they're reducing him to a narrative crutch. Need to add drama to a feud? Throw Heyman in there and have someone question his loyalty. Need to create a big moment? Have Heyman get attacked or have him turn on someone. It's formulaic to the point of being insulting to both Heyman and the audience. The tragedy here is that Paul Heyman's character worked best when he was actually loyal to a fault, when his allegiance to someone like Brock Lesnar felt unshakable, and that bond was what made their partnership special. The fear wasn't that Heyman would betray Brock, the fear was what Brock would do with Heyman in his corner. That dynamic created tension and unpredictability in a completely different way than these constant betrayal angles do. When Heyman stood beside Brock, you knew that monster had the perfect advocate, someone who would talk him into title matches, who would spin his destruction into a marketable commodity, who would make him feel larger than life. That relationship had weight because it was built on mutual benefit and a genuine partnership, even if it was rooted in Heyman's self-preservation instincts. What makes this even more maddening is that WWE has shown they can book Heyman brilliantly when they actually care to. The entire build of Roman's title reign with Heyman as his special counsel had stretches where it was absolutely perfect television. Heyman's promos were fire, his interactions with Roman felt genuine and added layers to both characters, and the power dynamics between them created natural tension that didn't require constant betrayal angles to maintain interest. They proved they could use Heyman in a way that elevated everyone involved without resorting to cheap tricks. So why abandon that formula in favor of this repetitive nonsense? The answer is probably that WWE creative has become lazy and relies too heavily on tropes and patterns that have worked in the past without considering whether they still work when you run them into the ground. Betrayal angles work in wrestling when they're earned, when they're built properly, when they have real stakes and consequences. They don't work when they become the default setting for a character, when fans can predict them from a mile away, when they happen so frequently that they lose all emotional impact. Paul Heyman deserves better than being reduced to the guy who's always in the middle of some betrayal storyline. He deserves to be used in ways that showcase his intelligence, his charisma, his ability to elevate whoever he's working with through his advocacy and his presence alone. Think about how protective WWE used to be with certain special attractions and how carefully they would deploy them to maximize impact. The Undertaker didn't show up every week because that would have diminished his mystique. Brock Lesnar's appearances were limited to maintain his monster status. Paul Heyman should be treated with similar care because he's just as much of a special attraction in his own right, but instead he's being overexposed in storylines that all blend together because they're all variations on the same theme. Fans stop caring about betrayals when they happen constantly. The shock value disappears, the emotional investment wanes, and what you're left with is an audience that's become numb to the very thing you're trying to use to create drama. The CM Punk situation was particularly egregious because it felt like WWE was just recycling the Heyman and Lesnar dynamic but with different names. Heyman and Punk have history, sure, but throwing Heyman into that mix with Roman just created this convoluted mess where nobody knew who Heyman was really loyal to, and the entire angle became about the loyalty question rather than about building compelling matches or meaningful character work. It was drama for drama's sake, manufactured tension that didn't serve anyone involved. Punk didn't need Heyman to get over because Punk is one of the best talkers in the business himself. Roman didn't need the complication of Heyman's divided loyalties because his character was strongest when he had clear, unquestioning support from his special counsel. And Heyman certainly didn't need another situation where his loyalty would be questioned because we've seen that movie a dozen times already. When you look at Seth Rollins getting involved with Heyman now, it's impossible not to feel a sense of deja vu. Here we go again with another top star, another situation where Heyman's presence is supposed to add intrigue, another inevitable betrayal or accusation of betrayal that will play out exactly like all the others. Seth cutting promos on Heyman, Heyman trying to navigate the situation, tensions building until something explodes, and we're supposed to act shocked even though this is literally the same pattern that's been playing out for years. It's predictable, it's tiresome, and it's a waste of everyone's time and talent. What's being lost in all of this is Paul Heyman's credibility as a character. Why would anyone trust him at this point, given his track record? Why would any wrestler want him in their corner when he's been involved in betrayal after betrayal? The character doesn't make sense anymore from a logical standpoint because WWE has put him in so many of these situations that he should be persona non grata, yet somehow he keeps getting involved with top stars and top storylines. There's no continuity, no acknowledgement of the pattern, no character growth that addresses why this keeps happening to him, or what he's learning from these experiences. He's just there, a familiar face that creative can plug into storylines when they need a quick injection of drama without having to do the hard work of actually building organic conflict. The worst part is that Paul Heyman is so talented that he makes these angles watchable even when they're fundamentally flawed. His promos are still incredible, his facial expressions still tell stories, his timing is still impeccable, he's doing everything he can to make this material work, but there's only so much even someone of his caliber can do when the creative foundation is this shaky. It's like watching a master chef trying to make a gourmet meal with gas station ingredients. The skill is there, the effort is there, but the end result is always going to be limited by what they have to work with, and what WWE is giving Paul Heyman to work with lately is the same reheated leftovers over and over again. The solution isn't complicated. Give Paul Heyman a clear role with a clear purpose, and let him excel at that without constantly throwing him into these convoluted betrayal storylines. Let him be a manager who's actually loyal to his client, and watch how that dynamic can create compelling television through other means. Let him cut promos that build matches and elevate talent without needing to question where his allegiances lie every other week. Let him be Paul Heyman, the advocate, the special counsel, the wise man, whatever title you want to give him, but let him actually inhabit that role consistently instead of being jerked around from storyline to storyline with no clear direction or purpose beyond creating temporary drama that ultimately means nothing. Until WWE figures this out, they're going to continue wasting one of their most valuable assets. Paul Heyman should be making stars, creating moments, building the next generation of main eventers through his association and his advocacy. Instead, he's stuck in this endless loop of betrayal angles that diminish him a little more each time they happen. It's frustrating to watch as a fan who understands what Heyman brings to the table and who wants to see him used properly. It's probably even more frustrating for Heyman himself, who clearly has so much more to offer than what he's being asked to do.